Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quantum Witch Cafe. Tonight we have Christina Gomez. You will definitely know who she is if you're in the community, but if you're new to the community, she works for the Debrief, and she also has her own show called Paradigm Shift on YouTube. All of those links you can find in the description below. Before we start, I just want to say thank you to anybody listening for the first time, whether it be on YouTube or that UFO podcast. I just wanted to say thank you and welcome, and you are very appreciated. If you've been supporting for a long time, extra thank yous and thanks for sticking with me. So, Christina, how are you today?
I am so excited for today, and I'm so sorry for my internet. It's like not working. So if I kind of freeze out, just we'll make it
Yeah.
work. But it's rare. I mean, it's actually not rare. I have the internet issues all the time where I am. So I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So like if we glitch out, guys, sorry, it happens. If it's too bad, we'll reschedule. But we're not gonna let it happen. We're just gonna put it out there that it's not gonna happen. And hello to the people in the chat. Jericho, Josh went back to bed. He always pops in to say hello. And Diesel Girl and Brad, thank you so much for coming. So many people that are watching my show already know who you are, but like I have some other people that might not know who you are from like the witch community or the spirituality community. So who is Christina Gomez? What do you do?
It's a loaded question. I'm just a regular person that is seeking answers. All of us have so many questions. We all want to know really what the truth is out there. And in some respects it can be rather difficult to find. So I created a podcast where I can speak to UFO researchers and enthusiasts and ask all the questions I want to ask, along with another show called Mysteries with a History, where I cover everything that kind of falls under the umbrella of the supernatural and the paranormal. And it's really geared for people like myself that are coming out of high school, in college, and that are very, very new to the topic and don't know where to start. When I started being interested in the topic, there was already a lot of UFO podcasts, but like when I would try to listen in, I was getting lost so quickly. There was so much jargon being thrown around. There were like cases that would be touched on, but then like they would run away. And I'm like, wait, what is Roswell? Like, what happened? And they wouldn't touch on it. So I decided, if I'm new, there has to be other people that are having the same questions I am. So the show that I make starts from the ground up. And then when I'm not doing that, I also work for the Debrief Media as a content producer, which has been a lot of fun. They just had their 1 year anniversary and they've grown so incredibly fast that like no one was expecting their growth to be so extreme. So it's been such a pleasure and such an honor to work with them, along with the KUNX radio show as well. So a lot has happened in just a short period of time, and I look forward to what the future holds for the whole UFO community.
That's very cool. So you kind of gave a little bit of like the why you do this, but I talked to you, I think we were on Alien Girls show. And I don't even know if I asked you or somebody else asked you, but you were talking about, and you've said this before in other interviews and just in general, that you are kind of trying to bring it to your generation. And everybody says, like, it's going to be the people like Christina's age group that's going to carry this forward when we're all in nursing homes and blah, blah, blah. But I have small children. So I am all about you. I'm really like, you got a big torch to carry, but I think you can do it. And I'm very thankful to have people like you in your age group spreading this, because I didn't talk about it publicly till this past year. And I had my first experience when I was 5. So I just have been like a secret weirdo with aliens the whole time. It was scary enough coming out about spirituality, but so I just want to thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Everybody at the Debrief is amazing. I love that. It's probably, I will say that UFO podcast and the Debrief are the two things that I kind of read. Like, when you like most people read like the news, like the news scares me sometimes, so I just read the Debrief or listen to UFO podcasts. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I met Chrissy. She was my first official interview,
So,
and she was so nice. Like, it's so rare to find people so genuine, but I found a lot of genuine people in this community. I think that a lot of the UFO UAP community, they're very intelligent, and they also kind of have this, whether they show it or not sometimes, this like capacity to empathize with others, because we've all kind of been those social outcasts for being who we are and being interested in the topic. But what is the main thing that got you like started? What is like the one straw that was like, I have to do this?
It was
Oh, guys, we lost her for a second. So we will just hang out, and if she comes back,
Oh, okay,
yes,
we're back. Okay.
oh,
So
awesome,
as a parent, you can understand how influential your likes and dislikes are towards your children. I mean, children are like sponges. Whatever you teach them, they can grasp it in a few minutes, if not the next day. So for myself, my father was a ginormous Twilight Zone fan. So like every New Year's, which is coming up in a few days, I'm so excited, on the Sci-Fi channel, they play the Twilight Zone for 48 hours. So my dad and I, from the age of 5 until I moved out of the house, we would just binge watch it. We would try our best not to sleep for 48 hours, which we always failed, right? Eating pizza, eating popcorn, drinking hot chocolate and stuff, and just really diving into this TV show from the late 1950s, early 1960s that covered these kinds of strange topics. Just everything you could imagine, from portals to Bigfoots to aliens
yes,
to everything in between. And during this time period, it was very incredibly taboo, yet they
oh, yes,
portrayed the show so beautifully. And I think my favorite part, the more mature I got watching the same episodes every single year, I began to realize that this was one of the very few shows that I watched that didn't just feed you the answers on a silver plate. It kind of ended each episode with like an open question. Well, what really happened?
yeah,
And so that
exactly.
curiosity just burned inside of me. And as um, parents, I'm not a parent, but I have with cats maybe, but with a
That's
lot
good.
of parents or those that have nieces and nephews, we could understand when a child hits about 5 or 6, they start asking those, like they're at that why
Oh yeah,
stage. Why
yeah,
this? Why that? Mom, why? Just why,
hmm,
why? And while that can be a really frustrating stage as an adult, for children, they just want to
yeah,
understand the world to the best of
everything.
their ability. And their parents or their teachers, they perceive them as if they know everything. Like, you guys are
Yes,
gods. You know what life is about. When I hit
hmm,
my 20s, I'm like, holy crap. I was so wrong when I was 10 years old. I thought I would have my life together.
oh
Here
yeah,
I am. And I'm like, I don't even understand anything. But but what I'm getting at is when kids are at that stage of asking why, most parents get frustrated and they're like, just stop asking me why. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Or like,
It's so
go to
hard.
Google. And and even though that might kind of sound funny now, for the kid, it can definitely affect them in the future.
Yes,
They lose their curiosity. They're
yeah,
scared of being rejected or having the answer no when they ask a question. And
yeah,
the older you get like your preteens, your teen years, you just kind of play off. You're like, yeah, I know that. Well, like,
right.
how do you know? Well, Google told me. And
Yeah,
you lose that curiosity. You stop asking those big questions. And with the paranormal, the supernatural, even spirituality, you need to have that curiosity to move forward. Otherwise, you're just going to be a stagnant pond, and no one wants to enter a pond full of
yes,
like moss and like dead bugs and stuff. No, you want a beautiful flowing river that you can enter, cleanse yourself, and really know that it's safe in that water for the most part. So for me, I love kids. I love kids with a passion. So I learned a lot from them from a young age until older, just to kind of see how their brains work, how they ask these questions. And even for myself, I'm only 22. Like, I'm still very close to, I still remember my teen years like
yeah.
pretty vividly. I remember my high school years, and let me tell you, there was
Huh.
nothing good about it. They're like, your high school and your college years are going to be the best years of your
Oh, I
life.
don't know.
And I'm thinking,
College,
I
maybe.
I have
College,
never been more sad than being in high
yeah.
school and college. So the biggest thing is, with my generation, we're so stuck to being to our cell phones. TikTok, we can walk the
Oh, yeah.
street right? Looking at our phones and not bump into anything.
Oh, yeah.
That's an amazing skill, but it's still dangerous. It's still
Oh, yeah,
because we're
definitely.
so attached to our cell phones. So for me, I wanted to bring this topic to my generation, and they can go ahead and start asking those questions again, start being curious again, because curiosity, even though
Oh, so internet has to act up. So yes, when Christina comes back, I'm sure she'll continue. So she's talking about curiosity, and my
thank
son
you.
is already like that. Oh, so sorry. I was just trying to fill the
No,
space.
you're okay. I was like, "Why isn't she moving?" "Oh, I think I'm frozen." Oh, but
These
so
things happen.
I'm trying to bring this to my generation to have them be curious once again because it keeps you young and it
Yes.
keeps life fun. If you know everything, you probably heard this 1,000 times, it gets boring.
Oh,
You
yes.
wanna keep learning. So for me, I talk to whoever I can get my hands on to go ahead and have these burning questions that I simply cannot find and that hopefully will get me closer to the truth wherever that may be, either through scientific data, through experiences, through anecdotal accounts. It doesn't really matter how you get there as long as you get there. There are so many paths to disclosure in your own mind, to
Yes.
reaching an enlightened state, right? For those that are spiritual, for
Mm.
getting a doctorate degree. There are so many paths you can take, but they're all going to take you there at some point in time.
Yep, exactly. I couldn't have said that better. You had mentioned that when you started the podcast, there were so many there were so many UFO podcasts already. It's similar with the spiritual community. I remember last year I had a business with my friend, and we were doing like meditation kits and spiritual free spiritual classes or metaphysical classes, and basic things for people that just started kind of getting into spirituality, because it was very similar like what you said. You would go into the spiritual podcast and they would start talking about like the holographic universe and stuff that people don't understand. And so we were doing it to kind of like help like the people that had just started their spiritual journey and curiosity, kind of veering away from a lot of people kind of like questioning outside of their churches or the religion they grew up in, and thinking more like in a more united front, I guess, more like global consciousness, that sort of thing. So it's interesting. I always seem to see parallels between like this community and the spiritual community, even though some people wouldn't like to hear that. It's also very interesting that so many people have kind of like started their interest in like this sort of thing at the age of 5. And because like you said, everybody's so curious at that age, like the whole world is like open to you. You don't understand anything. And my 4-year-old's already at the Y stage. He talked early. He's like he's like, Dad, why it literally like, tell me about chlorophyll, because my his because he asked why the leaves are green, and I have a biology background. So I was like, well, because of chlorophyll. And then he's like, what's that? I'm like, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to explain like the light and dark cycle to this kid already? Like he'll be like, tell me again about a hurricane and how it works. Like and he does it to my husband's a more patient one. I just kind of give him like one word answers. And you're right, I shouldn't do that, because as a kid, that's why it took me so long to like speak my truth and use my voice to just in general. Like there would be times where somebody would ask me something and I would freeze. I wouldn't talk because I got shut down so much as a kid. So I'm trying not to do that to my kids. Stay curious. But yeah, they're so the way they think is just it's just so open. You know what I mean? Like
It
everything
is.
to
There's
them.
no bias. There's no opinions yet because they haven't even formed one. They don't even know
Yeah.
how to understand what the topic is, so they cannot place any past experiences to go ahead and explain what they're seeing. For example, chlorophyll. If you don't even know how chlorophyll works, if you don't even understand why plants are green, how can you even form an opinion to why that is? Right,
Yeah.
without any background information. So kids are amazing. They are sponges. They can just swallow up anything. But of course, depending on their age, you have to explain it to them differently so that they're able to explain it based off of their vocabulary and
Yes.
also based off of their experiences as well. And it's fun because with children, it makes you learn all over again, because sometimes they'll ask questions and you're like, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Let me
Yeah.
go ahead and ask Google, hey Alexa, why?
You're like when you're a mom, you're like the Alexa. You're the Alexa before the Alexa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I love it. I took them to this playground, and it's called Bernheim Forest. It's in Kentucky. And I don't know if you're familiar with, there's these forest giants that this guy builds out of repurposed wood, and I want to say he's from Norway or Sweden. But there are these massive giants made out of like repurposed wood. I'll have to send you the link. But there's one here, and we went. And he just had so many questions. Well, they built like a natural playground there, and if you're like a neat freak mom, you would not like this playground, because like I'm not a neat freak, and I was like cringing a little bit because they were like rolling down this hill and there's like dirt, and I'm like, oh my god, but this is boys. They just need to get dirty. Um, just let it be.
No, but then
But
like when they come in the house, it's just full of mud, and you're like, take
the
off your
car, yep,
shoes.
car, the house, yep. But they have to have fun and be curious. But I was watching my son. He like lay down this like random thing of like patch of grass and was just looking at the sky. So he's doing the cloud thing right now, like
Yeah.
like I think that one looks like this or that, and that one looks like a fish. So he was doing that, and then he's like, "Look, mom, a UFO." So I was like, oh my gosh, my husband's like, you are rubbing off on this kid. Like, look at he did a speech evaluation. His whole story was about like a UFO. And I'm
Oh,
like,
that's
I don't
amazing.
talk to him about it. Like, I'm sure he hears it. They hear everything, but his curiosity about everything, just the tiniest things. And I like to watch them. Like, I like to watch them, and humans need to be more like that. I like bigger humans, I guess. Not that kids aren't humans, but I like people watching in general. Um, it's like my favorite to go to like a cafe or a mall and just watch people, because you can read like things about them. But what was curious, you said people can walk around with their phones like this. And I remember learning in a forensic anthropology class that I took that, it took us so long to get our eyes where they are so we could see straight. I'm wondering if like in the future we're just gonna hunch back over and our eyes are gonna be like from doing this all the time. Because I remember like the upright, like bipedalism, like all of this just happened because we were walking upright, and we're just like this now all the time. So I just always picture people when they're down like that. And it also is like kind of funny, like from like a woo standpoint for myself, like people want to like talk about all the cool ESP stuff, like the extrasensory perception and their auras and stuff. But us, like our phones are kind of giving us this sixth sense of like light poles and people and walls,
Right.
hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
I mean, I've seen some people.
But for the most part, I mean, you can look down and like still walk straight, not
Oh
bump
yeah.
into anyone, like avoid all the potholes. It's amazing. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of those people. Like
Oh yeah.
if I walk on campus, I will be on my phone because I don't want to
Yeah.
talk to anybody,
Oh
and
yeah, that
I
definitely
will
helps.
not bump into a single human. I'll be like, I got this.
So I've been around so long that I saw this cell phone thing happen. My godfather had like the big one, like the big 80s like cell phone. I thought he was so cool. I thought he was rich because he had a convertible and one of those big old phones. And I just remember like receiving the first text message. That's how old I am. And I was just like, oh, what is this? I'm like, how did you send a message on the phone?
Or like on pagers even before
Oh
phones.
my
Oh,
god, yeah. I think I was too young at the time. I think my mom got me one for like her use, but then like once the battery died, we were just done. So she was just like, I was super young. I was like, we're not going anywhere anyways. You're gonna page me from the backyard. But my mom still calls it page. She'll be like, I sent you a page. I'm like, you sent me a text.
wow. Dang. Bless.
So it's always funny. So I think we might have a question. So Nikki's a great friend of mine. I'm gonna say hello to some more people. Carolina's here, Alien Girl's here. We have
Hi.
Laura. I love the new name, Laura, Paranormal Pixie. You haven't been that this whole time. Brad's been here. And Nikki's like my friend from Alaska. She's a medium. She was on one of my shows, and I'm gonna have her on again, of course. Because when I knew her, we were both at the beginning of our spiritual journey, and we actually reconnected over her first like UFO sighting. And she was just like, I swear it like I when people see them the first time, it opens like so much in them. And it's interesting that Gary Nolan just had that. There was just that article about how it changes the caudate putamen on people that have experiences, and they think a lot of like people that have extrasensory perception, remote viewing talents, and psychic awareness also have that change in the morphology of their brain. So it'd be interesting to see some legitimate psychics get their brain scanned. But yeah, I feel like it changes people. I have you had an experience? Oh, we froze again. So yeah, so I don't know if anybody's read the Gary Nolan. He has an actual paper, but he also has an article out through Vice. It's kind of like entry level if you don't want to get too deep into like the scientific literature. But Christina, have you had an experience? Have you seen anything, or are you have you seen a UFO, UAP? What do you prefer to call it?
Yeah, I mean it's the same name, right? Same
Yeah.
thing, different names. I'm not too picky on it. As long as we have this conversation, whatever you want to call it is fine with me. Yes, I have had an experience a few years back, and I was visiting India with a group of friends, like a group of people that ended up becoming my friends. And we were just kind of walking by, and we saw this sadhu on the side of the road, or a holy man, whatever, kind of is pretty similar. And we're like, hey, we want to see some ancient ruins and ancient temples somewhere nearby. Do you happen to know where it is? And the sadhu was like, I'll take you. I'll take you there. And we're like, who is this guy? Like, why does he want to take this group of people? I guess like nothing can go wrong, right? Everything's gonna be fine.
Right. No, of course not. You're in
So
India. You're young. Who cares?
right, everything's fine. So we take a bus for like 4 kilometers. I think it's what, like 5 miles or something, give or take. Sorry, my conversion is not very good.
You're fine.
So we took about for like a little bit on a bus, and then we walk another mile to these ruins because it's like not near any road. It's an old Shivian temple. Yeah. And we're all there, and he sits in a meditative, he sits in a posture to meditate. And he's like, yeah, guys, here's all the ruins. Go ahead and look through them. And then when you're done, you can just sit on the grass and look up in the sky, right? Just have a good time. So a lot of people in my group were, after they finished going through the ruins, they began to sit down and meditate. And then it was just beginning to reach like nighttime. So we're about getting there. And I'm a huge cloud watcher too, just like your son. So when the sun was out, I was like, oh yeah, that one looks like a chicken eating like an alligator or something. And then he was like, okay, guys, everyone stop meditating and look up into the sky. So as we're all looking up into the sky, I look over at the holy man, and he's sitting completely in meditation. Like his eyes are closed, he is in a meditative state. Nothing can wave him. And while we're all looking, right, some guy next to me is like, what is that? And we're like, what? And we all look up, and we see these three kind of orangey yellow orbs because they were
Yeah.
still kind of far away. And one of them was rather close to us, like pretty relatively close, and it looked a lot like the Carlos Diaz lights. I don't know if you know that story,
Yes.
but for those that don't, it's kind of like this craft, and it's like the whole thing is glowing in like a
Yeah.
yellow orangey
Yeah.
reddish kind of tone, and it's not fully nuts and bolts. It looks semi organic and semi
Yeah.
not. It's really confusing, and it's really difficult to
Yes.
explain. But for those that want to look at the Carlos Diaz lights, please do. And it looks really similar to that. So it comes in really close, and we're all like, I mean, we're shocked. We're thinking, what the heck is this? And then it flies close to the other two ships, I guess, UFOs, and then they just disappear. Then the holy man opens his eyes very naturally, very slowly, and to paraphrase what he said, it's those things that you saw are very close to how your actual family are.
Oh.
Everything coexists together.
Oh.
And then we were all talking at once. We're like, did you see that? No way.
Yeah.
And see, I at the time I was not into the UFO topic. I mean, I've always liked it, but I wasn't like crazy into it. So I didn't take any pictures. I didn't do any videography on it. I couldn't even compare the sizing because I had
Yeah.
no reference points. And I didn't
Yeah.
even consider, well, let me look at this. Let me see how many diameters it might be
Right.
across and like how far away is it from me. Let me write this down. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't even I was so shocked. I was just like,
Well,
I have
people
no
get like
words.
they get like really caught up in the moment, and that's why
They
some people
do.
are like, "Well, why didn't you take a picture?"
And you're
There's some
like,
people that are in hot spots and they should be taking pictures, and they do. Like, there's a guy named Jason on Instagram. I don't know if you've seen his stuff, but he's out there every night taking these videos with his night vision. But yeah, he sees them like all the time. But yeah, like people aren't thinking of like
you're not, especially
measuring it. So maybe like now, but yeah, I when I saw them when I was little, obviously I was young. So to me, I was like, they looked like the size of a basketball or a volleyball. But nobody's
it's
thinking that in the moment, because especially the first time you're trying to figure out what it is in most cases.
exactly because your brain is trying to rationalize what you're seeing. So your bias, your opinion, your past experiences are all running ahead of you, trying to explain that this is what you're seeing is normal. And at this time, I was rather young. I was barely exiting my teen years, so it's like I don't know what was going on, but it wasn't something that I spoke about publicly to anyone. And the biggest reason was not because I was embarrassed or like shy to share my story, but it was more of like the experience to me was so profound. Even if I tried to explain it, like no one would get it, especially my
Yes.
peers as well, coming out of high school into college. And the biggest thing was when I was there, I this Sod that was also teaching us a lot of, I guess, dharma, right? Like
Yes.
spiritual teachings.
Yeah.
And he was practically saying, whatever you encounter, simply do not attach to it. It's merely an illusion. Whatever you see, it's going to come and go. And that really stuck with everyone in the group to the
Yes.
point where like we all agreed not to speak about it uh, away from our group that saw it. So we kind of like took an oath not to say it for a good amount of years. But as I had joined the community, people were asking, so this encounter you had, please enlighten me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I really shouldn't. And they're like, oh, so you're a liar. You didn't really have an
Oh my
encounter, did
gosh.
you?
I
And I'm
can't
like,
take it.
no, I did. I'm just not really supposed to share it. Like
Right.
it's,
It was for you. It
it
was
was
for
for
you in that group. It was for that moment, and people have a problem with that. And I still do.
exactly.
And I see them if I do a meditation and I go out and watch the sky, I'm going to see one. I don't have money for a TSLR, but also they might not show up. Some of these experiences are just for you. And he kind of said that like these are like your basically distant family. We're all connected. And I would have lost it right there. I'm going to tell you, I'm a little bit of a hippie. I would have started crying. Like you like just had like a dream that I want. Like you like in this by this temple with this holy man in India. You saw a UFO. I would have lost my damn mind and stayed there. I'm not coming back after that. I'm gonna sit with him and we're all gonna summon UFOs until I die. Sorry, kids.
Well,
Sorry,
I definitely did not want to return back to the States when I was living there. Yet, when I did come back, I was like, wow, living in the States is such an amazing country. Like, I'm so grateful
yeah,
that I live here compared to these third world countries. And also,
yes,
my mom, being from Venezuela, it's still kind of classified as
yeah.
I guess a second world country, not really a
Developing
third
country,
world
yeah.
country, developing, yeah.
Country, not
And so
country.
when she moved to the States, she's like, I'm never going back. I'm never going back to my country
Yes.
because like this place is amazing. Um, but it was a rather profound experience. And it's not really one that even in the community, I don't talk about it often. If I'm
Yeah.
asked, I'll kind of briefly
Yeah.
go over
Thank
it.
you for sharing that. It really means a lot to me because that is such a beautiful experience.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And you know what? I'm happy to share it with you and with your audience. But for the most part, like I don't. I don't. No matter how well I'll try to explain it, it won't hit people the same.
No. You know who you should tell? You should tell. So they were in here. Prime Time was in here. Not Prime. Oh my gosh, Josh and Artemis show. Josh, his mom does all this amazing UFO art from people's experiences.
Wow.
Now, she is somebody like when I told her my experience and she drew it, I was crying because she asked like, tell me every smell, she asked all these questions about senses. And I remember all that because I was 5, but you're so immersed in your environment when you're young. You know what I mean? Like a child. So I remembered a lot of it, and it really did change my worldview. I've always been a weirdo ever since that experience. So, but yeah, she drew it, and she's drawn other people's experiences, and it's all this black and white pen art, and it's amazing. I'll have to send you a picture of it too, because if she draws it, my goodness, Carolina, you're right. Some things are just for you. Yeah, and they won't
Some
show up in DSLR. She says, so Carolina says, this just caught my eye for some reason. She said, you're right. Some things are just for you and they will not show up in DSLR or even like security cams, these beings. And we're learning more about this now that they kind of show up to us as we will accept them and see them because of the whole consciousness connection. So it makes a lot of sense that if this was for you to set you on this path or that you're supposed to be doing or set you up for your dharma, or it was for you guys in that group. And and I think a lot of experiences are like that. But with the community, you're going to have two people. Like, it's so divisive. Um, you have to be nuts and bolts, or you have to be woo woo, UFO summoner, or whatever, But
yeah.
people are gonna be really surprised when they realize it's all connected, and people are starting to, and it's kind of fun to watch because, as a witch and a spiritualist, a mystic, whatever you want to call me, I know this already, but it's very cool to see science supporting it because, like I said, my background is in molecular biology and I love physics. Like that is one of my favorite things to read about. So like entanglement and stuff like that is just like you said, the holy man in India said, like, don't get attached to anything because it's all like an illusion. We already know this through physics, but they knew
Exactly.
this for so long.
For centuries, if not in longer than that. And you're right. In many respects, if you look at old Sanskrit text, you're going to see a lot of physics and other science
Yeah,
aspects that science today is just now catching up on. Now, for myself, I'm very nuts and bolts. I have to be very critical in the way I think and only speak about things that data can go ahead and back up those claims. Just because that's just the path that I'm taking in the UFO world now. And there are so many paths you can take, like we have spoken about earlier, and there is no wrong one.
no,
So I believe it is so beautiful more than anything to know that not everyone has the same mindset, and that not everyone is going to be sciencey, not everyone's going to be spirit, have a
right,
spiritual aspect to it, because you're going to see them intertwine
yeah,
amongst inside one another. So I love it all. I think it's a rather exciting topic to be in, and I truly believe it is the most important conversation that humanity is having in this point in time.
absolutely. People will kind of guilt trip. Like I've been guilt tripped before. Like you're worried by family members. You're worried about this UFO thing, but there's all this other stuff happening in the world without naming like topics that they went down because I don't want to downplay anything that somebody's passionate about. But we have to realize every single one of us has a role to play in this time, in this life. And it's that whole duality of like different roles that we play that actually makes us a whole. So people just need to be more accepting of, it's hard when somebody's like jumping at you because, you're a hippie or you're not a hippie, or don't you see it's conscious now? Don't you see it's physics? And, people just get in these fights, and it's very counterproductive because we're all exactly where we're supposed to be. We're strategically placed. We all have our own dharma to follow. We all have something that we're going to give people in our own way. Like, yes, there's a bunch of UFO podcasts, there's a bunch of paranormal podcasts, there's a bunch of spiritual podcasts, but the way that you're presenting it is not going to be the same as somebody else. And somebody might listen to you, not listen to me, and vice versa. So we all have to just keep doing what we're doing. And I think that
Exactly. And
made great strides recently.
and you're right. with the show, and I think we're on the same page on this, with the show that we create, it's about helping that one person that needs it. Because you're right, there are so many, and everyone's going to have their own audience. Everyone's going to capture different people based off of how they go ahead and portray these stories or these encounters. But for myself, not only am I trying to help my generation as a whole, but it's really just helping that one person that needs it, that needs it to hear, and to know that they're not alone in this path, that all so many of us are pushing forward to get that disclosure, to get that truth, or even to understand that we shouldn't feel ridiculed, we shouldn't feel scared to share our experiences, or to even have an interest in this topic, because it's been going on for centuries. And it is so exciting to read all of like the really old stories. Well, I
Yeah.
was really shocked by the one that Christopher Columbus.
That's not a well-known one. She's going to tell us about Christopher Columbus one when she comes back. But yeah, not a lot of people realize that there was documented sightings through journals, because when we think back to like the earlier, like the like Christopher Columbus and people that started America, their documentation was their diaries or their journals. So is that where they found his? Maybe I'm not getting it right. His experience, Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, they found it in one of his diaries, and I can't remember which museum it's in. I want to say, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's in Portugal, his diary. But he had practically claimed that when he was traveling to the United States, which obviously wasn't the United States really, but on the way there, he was saying that he saw a candlelight entering and exiting the water, because at this time there was no electricity. You couldn't even explain you saw a light in the sky, you saw a flying
Transmedium
saucer.
was
Like,
not a thing then.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're like, what the heck is this? So the best way he could explain it was by saying it was a candlelight entering and exiting the water. And that's one of the first kind of accounts that has been written down of
Right.
UFOs. There's another one in Japan, the Utsurubune, which is another
Right.
really stellar story. I think it was actually in the
Yeah.
1800s.
Oh,
Christopher
yeah.
Columbus was in 1492, so 400-year difference. But I personally love hearing the like really ancient UFO
Oh,
stories,
yeah.
because they have to make it relevant to their experiences at that time.
Right.
In the Japanese story I think maybe it's the 1600s. I think anyways, they had to
Really old guys.
explain the craft as a rice pit, because they don't
Interesting.
have teacups, right, and like tea plates.
Right.
They don't have those. So but what they did have were rice pits, and that was the best way they could explain the craft that they were seeing. So I find it beautiful, the language that is being portrayed, and I always really hope that the translations can like help, hopefully,
Yes.
and like not lose its translation when it's being shifted from language to language.
Right. And that happens a lot with the older languages, right?
Oh, of course, especially the ones that are no longer being used.
Well, we look at Sumeria, we know that there's the book of Ezekiel, and people like are so weirded out by that description of the chariot. But like you said, what was then? Like they're relating it to things I knew then, and we do the same thing now.
And
Like
there's
we
some
are
things that
thinking it's a plane, it's a stealth plane, like it's a weird drone.
exactly, and there's
They're
some
trying to
things
make
that and there's some technology that they had then that we do not have now or have any data of. So when we read it, we're like, what are they trying to explain? And then it can also get lost in translation. So it's a really sensitive kind of topic when you're hitting the really really old stories. And by the way, the Utsurubune was in the 1800s. I had to Google it just to
Oh,
make
okay.
sure. Yeah, I
So
was like,
probably, yeah.
don't want to be wrong. But I really like that. And I've had complaints, and this is like really disappointing. I've had complaints on my channel and on social media where they're like, you're just covering all the really old stories. What about what's happening in present day? And I'm
There's
thinking,
people doing that too, though.
well,
There's
there is, but here's the thing. In present day, I believe it is the hardest time today to decipher what is really going on in the sky, because we have such advanced technology now
Yes.
more than ever that it's very difficult to say, like, is it a UFO or is it a drone, or like, is it really a
Right.
weather balloon, or is it some kind of like black
Mhm.
project? And it's kind of a lot more covered up. Yes, you have a lot of paper trails. Yes, there's a lot of people you can call, but they're
Yes,
gonna deny, right? If you call NASA,
right.
no, we're not
Or they
flying
can't
anything
talk
right now.
about it
They
through
can't
security
talk
reasons.
about it. But in the early 1900s, 1800s, if you saw something in the sky, that was insane by itself because you didn't
Oh,
have
yeah.
airplanes back then. Balloons, okay, maybe, but they did not go that high at the time because it's
They
not
didn't
made
even
out of the
glow in most
materials
cases.
that we have today. Exactly. So I
Not
feel
not
like
the way a UFO would glow. Anyway, like, I know, like, some people, they really use
exactly,
fire for hot air balloons and all that, but,
which was
um,
very cool at the time. So
yes.
I believe now more than ever, it's a lot harder, and especially we also have CGI. We have all these really cool
Yes.
programs that can make things look really real when they're not, and people just do it as a joke. So
Yeah.
yes, the more people covering the more present day UFOs, but that doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't, and people are getting so good at CGI, like, it's almost a challenge to them to make it, um, not be able to be like, debunked. It's and it brings us all to that whole, like, reality perception thing that we have, like, what we perceive is actually the reality, like, Schrodinger's box stuff. But poor cat. I know. People are always like, I'm like, it's all right, PETA. It wasn't a real cat. It was a thought experiment. Like, um, but yeah, it was one of those things. It's like that thing where, like, we are so, like, I think that Elon Musk says it, that we're already AI because of the way we interface with we're totally fine talking to each other like this. And I feel like I know you and I'm talking to you because I see you. And I know that you can pick up energy through the screen. And I know that sounds super weird, but it happens. I've seen people come on like Zoom, or even Google Duo phone calls or FaceTime, and you can tell right away, even if they're faking that they're having a good day, that something's going on. So now we're developing this other weird extrasensory thing through the internet, and this sort of like human interface where we can actually feel each other, which is super creepy to think about. That's definitely Twilight Zone or Black Mirror. Is like, have you watched Black Mirror?
I haven't, but I've heard really good things about it.
You would like it if you liked old Twilight Zone. I was a Twilight Zone kid too, and yeah, it's like super weird stuff. But there's a couple AI episodes where it's like, I can see this happening, and it was like that with the Twilight Zone back then. You're like, that's weird, but I could see it happening.
Yes, yes, in just a few years' time, and a lot of things that have happened in that show are pretty relevant here today. But when it comes to interfacing with AI, the first thing that comes to mind is the cyborgs from Star Trek. That's the
Yes,
first
yes,
thing that comes to mind where you're really being integrated with technology.
yes.
And then what if they take you over and then you're like, what? Just like an evil robot? I mean, that's kind of
Right.
scary, but
We're not
but
that
in
far from that. I
I
feel like, I
mean,
mean, like, we're
earpods,
yeah,
Bluetooth,
we're
you
sticking things in our
know,
ear already, guys. Like,
yeah, and people have like mechanical arms, which are like pretty cool.
yeah,
But
the new mechanical arms are so amazing. Like,
it's pretty fantastic. So look, you're right. We're not far, like Elon Musk said. We're already interfacing with technology. And, maybe that's what we're supposed to do in order to progress, right, scientifically and see where it'll take us. Here's the biggest thing. If we're going to bring the scientific aspect to it, if we're going to do the whole exploration in space, right? We're having a space race right here, right now,
right.
once again. y- for from our understanding of space, and I forgot who said this in an interview, but it made me laugh. It's like everything in space is trying to kill you. Like it's very difficult to find a planet one that is
Yes.
habitable, that you can find oxygen and everything you need to survive. The majority of them are not. And if we were able to integrate with AI, if we had some like a suit that we could wear all the time, right, that was constantly doing its thing, I don't
Yeah.
know, um then you could go ahead and live on these planets or travel through space looking for another planet and
Right.
living a relatively normal life instead of struggling, instead of having to constantly like change your spacesuit and
Right.
then like do all these weird things when your body can just do it naturally. And that's in quotation marks. That's not
Yes.
actually naturally, it's AI, but you get what I mean.
Right. Right.
So it's a weird thing. I'm looking forward to all of the missions that are happening with space because in a sense, they're all looking for life. And they're doing it in a scientific way. They're looking for microbial life, starting small, but they're getting there to go
Right.
ahead and hopefully find something that might not be explainable or that look maybe somewhat like us. Right now, there is going to be a mission to Venus in 2023 to go
That is
ahead and see if phosphine really is a byproduct of life. So that's going to be really interesting. And then you have the Perseverance rover looking for
yes.
microbial life in Jezero Crater, which is currently its home base.
Right.
So we're starting small. We're starting in our solar system, but I think that's rather fantastic. For those that I guess are more scientifically minded, or for those that haven't had like intense experience with an extraterrestrial like right next to them, because there's a big difference with having being a contactee and then just seeing a UFO in the sky. There's a
Yes. But on that point, I always tell people it's relative too, because some people, the light in the sky is just for them, and what they've experienced is also is very big for them. You know what I mean? So I try to be mindful of the whole. It's all relative to their experience. If they saw a light in the sky that like what you saw, this weird plasma-y, like it's self-contained weirdness, and then they were raised one way to think that's not even real, then it's also like that could be just as changing to them as like a contactee or an abductee or an experiencer of that type. Guys, I didn't cut her off. She froze. So if you guys are thinking of being, if you're listening to just the audio, like she froze. So I just kept talking so we weren't like sitting there in silence. But I was like, people probably think I'm being rude, like just hopping in there. Like,
no, that's really smart. Instead of having like awkward silence, like on
yeah,
on video it's okay, but like on the radio or just on a podcast, people are
right.
like, What's going on? Did my phone freeze?" And it's like,
Yeah.
actually, no, it's on my behalf why there's
Loading. No.
issues.
Yeah, I think the first couple times I was like, oh, she froze. And then after that, I was like, oh, well, I'll just keep talking because I know this audio is going to be out.
And that's smart. That's a beautiful, like a great way and a beautiful way to carry it on, because it's your show. You don't want to have that like dry air and they're like, wow, these people like what are they doing?
So yeah, if it seems like I'm cutting Christina off, I'm not. We have internet things happening. But what were you talking? You were saying the experience is pretty impactful if you're a contactee. I don't know why I have this southern thing happening out of nowhere. I've been in Kentucky too long.
Yeah, so when it comes to the UFO phenomenon, right? When it comes to disclosure in the aspect of like, what are you really looking for? You're looking for the government to tell you, yes, aliens are here, or is it something else entirely? Is it that you're looking for actual data to go ahead and provide the information that not only is there life outside of our planet, but there is life that looks a lot like us, that are
Yes,
bipedal, right? That can hold conversations, so on and
right.
so forth. And so, like I said at the beginning, there are so many paths you can take. Either you can be a contactee and believe it right off the bat that, like, yes, aliens are real, all these different races, this, that, and the other, they're telepathic, they're interdimensionals.
Right.
Or for those that are not contactees or abductees, or those that know people that are, right, it can be a lot more difficult to grasp that
Right.
possibility. And so, taking the route of science, where you're having the mission to Venus in 2023, you're having the Perseverance rover, which hopefully they will be providing data of life on Jezero Crater, and other future missions that are coming along with telescopes that are going to be launching the James Webb telescope.
Yeah, that one's gonna be insane.
It
Like
should be
I'm
launching
wowed by like
soon.
Hubble pictures and people's astrophotography pictures. I cannot even. I'm so excited.
It's insane.
To
And
see what.
also with the giant Magellan telescope, I mean, you're already having astrophysicists and astronomers scheduling to be there, to go
So,
ahead and see what they can find just using
oh
these
my goodness.
amazing,
Yeah.
insane telescopes. So I am not against either any path that is taken. It's just the biggest thing is it's as long as we get the disclosure that we're looking for. Then you also
Right.
have the Galileo project,
Oh
right?
yes. So
Run
amazing.
by Harvard professor Abby Loeb.
I
And
love
what's
him. I
amazing
love him
about
so much. Wytch.
Oh, me too. Me too. He's really fantastic. It was such a pleasure to speak with him. But with him and what makes him different from other scientists is that, to my understanding, at least currently, he wants to make all the data that he collects public. He
Yes.
wants to make it public. And a
Right.
big reason to that is because he has private funders. He's not
Right.
working for the government. He's not working for some kind of contract, right, to go ahead and collect that and give it to the government. He is working practically for himself and for the people of Earth, no
Right.
one
Right.
else. And that has been very rare because you have NASA, but and then you
Yeah.
have
There's no space.
SpaceX, which is
Yeah.
also kind of like you're not
The
really getting
private
that
sector keeps a
information
lot
that
to
you're looking
themselves.
for.
Yeah.
Exactly. But with the Galileo project, at least currently, we don't know how it'll be in the future. At least currently, he wants
Right.
to make anything that he collects, any data that is provided to him, made to the public. And that is beautiful because all the previous scientists are funded by, usually by those that want that information for themselves. So or they
Yeah, so Avi seems like he wants to, his information is going to be very clean because he's not looking for anything that has happened in the past. He's looking for his own information that he's collecting from the first time he gets that, whatever data collection modality he uses, whether it be a telescope or, whatever he decides to use. He's taking it from that point and forward. He's not messing with anything that's declassified, not anything classified. And some people were saying like, oh, I really want him to be part of this whole government movement that's happening with the legislation. I'm like, I don't think he would do it. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him, but he's like on my bucket list, must meet kind of people. He's that person. I'm like, I really want to talk to him, and hopefully I don't sound stupid, but he's very I like the way he explains things. He knows what his path is, and he knows how he wants to collect it, and he knows what he wants to do with the data. Like you were saying, he's privately funded, so he doesn't owe anything to the governments of the world, I guess.
exactly. And so he's really he's very good at explaining very complicated things in a very simple manner. And the biggest thing for him, at least from my understanding, from seeing so many of his interviews and also talking to him, is that humanity needs to remain humble. No matter what, no matter what data is provided, no matter if we're being visited by aliens or not, we need to remain humble in that the universe is so vast. It's so
Yes.
huge that we can't even comprehend how
No.
big the universe is. Yes, there are numbers to go ahead and like explain it, but those
Right.
numbers are so large that our brain is like, I can only
Yes.
pass a
Yes.
million, and that's like as good as it's gonna get.
Right.
But with him, he's like, if the universe is so vast, why are they visiting just us? Our planet is rather small. It's not that easy to find, right?
Yeah.
We're in downtown of the galaxy. There are
Yeah.
so many planets. Why are they visiting just us? I'm not really feeling that.
Right.
So with him, from everything that I've heard, the biggest thing just to remain humble. That no matter what information is given to us, we cannot have preconceived ideas of
Yes.
what's going on if we don't have anything to back up that evidence.
Yes, absolutely. So we are coming up on the hour, and I know somebody, Alien Lives Matter, was messaging me saying he wanted to ask some questions. Do you feel up to at least one question before we close out?
Yes.
The question is, what are the messages communication from alien? What are the messages in communication from aliens? That's what he's interested in. Elizondo said that they attempted and gave the impression it was successful. I don't know if you know the answer to that. Then he says, obviously, Navy, etc., tried to communicate with them with the UAP.
So there, for an instance, this has been going on for quite a few decades. You have SETI, okay? You have ginormous satellites that are trying to emit radio waves to go ahead and see what can come back from that, or if it can be deciphered. There was a whole movie called Contact. I think it was called
Yeah.
Contact,
Yep.
and it was just about that. They had these ginormous satellites, and then they actually got a message coming from space, and they were like freaking out. They were so excited. It took them a really long time to decipher what it meant. And so there has been this type of communication for quite a few decades to my understanding, but now when it comes to present day, you can keep following SETI. You're also having all these actual missions that are entering space, or you can take a different path, right? And you can do CE5. There are quite a few people that have had rather profound experiences where through meditation they were able to have these kinds of experiences or sightings. Now, I haven't tried it. I don't know too much about it. I've only heard
Right.
stories. But you have two paths. Take a scientific path, which is, it takes a lot of technology, resources, a lot of
Mhm.
money, which is great if you work for a private company, if you work for the government, or if you want to do something more at home and get, I guess, more personal results. Then, from what I've heard, you allegedly could also do CE5
Right.
experiments. I guess you call them experiments
Mhm.
as well. So I it's been going on for a while.
Right, right. So I'm not sure about this Alien Lives Matter. I don't know that I if you have where he says that NDA now funds Ovilo Galileo. It's in the amendment. I don't know that that is. If it is a thing, send it to me. That's curious. I haven't heard. Have you heard anything about that, Christina?
Not yet. No, I haven't, but I'll be looking into it. No,
Yeah,
I
for sure, because that's a very curious statement. Yeah, so guys, if I'll try to have Christina on again. You can also probably contact her. I have her information in the description box. Christina, do you have anything exciting coming up? I know that you're doing a lot of fun things. Is there anything that you're excited to do for? I guess is there any big things coming for you in 2022, which is like around the corner? Or as my son's always like, "Where's the corner? I don't see it." I was like,
he's
"Oh
too
my god,
literal.
buddy. I'm so sorry. You're 4, you take everything literally."
It's so cute. It's so cute. 2022 is gonna a lot of things are gonna happen, not just for me, but I think when it comes to disclosure and hopefully with how the news outlets are going to provide that information is going to be rather exciting, especially now that allegedly we're going to be getting reports every 6 months.
Very cool.
We'll be seeing how that goes. So for myself, um, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I mean, there's still the debrief, which I post shows every single Friday, which are news roundups of like summaries of the articles.
Yes.
And then for KUNX Talk Radio every Tuesday, where I talk to UFO researchers and enthusiasts. So I'm excited what it's going to hold and how far we've come. And I mean, look, we've come really far in just a year. Let's see what's going to happen next year, which is just in a few days.
Oh, yeah,
Really.
I know. That is so nuts. I feel like people complain about 2021, but I feel like it's been good for me. I don't really have, I guess the whole, like, talking about this publicly in my experiences has been like a weight lifted, like, out of my soul. Like, I feel I can talk about this. There's people like me. Like, I didn't know UFO Twitter was a thing. I didn't know that the Instagram community was a thing. So I just kind of like tried to talk to people about it in my real life, which is not really good playground talk amongst the moms. So at one point, I even tried to like bring it into like this world again and talk about physics, which is also not good playground talk. So I'm very grateful for everybody that's listening and watching. Christina, can you hang out backstage for a little bit? Not very long.
Absolutely.
I always say thank you to people behind, the scenes or whatever. So everybody, I'm going to take you out real fast. Thank you so much for joining and listening. Again, if you're listening on YouTube or on that UFO podcast, thank you so much. Give a like or a subscribe or a comment, rating. I don't know what it allows you to do, but thank you if you're a new listener. Thank you to everybody that joined in the chat and everybody watching. Oh my gosh, making it worse. Watching later on, and I will see everybody next week for UAP Ladies Night. And I believe that I'm having Artemis. It's just going to be Artemis and I counting down our like the top 10 cool things that happened in 2021 as far as UFO news goes. Have a great night, and you're going to listen to this probably after Christmas. So I hope you had good holidays, Happy New Year, all that good stuff. And I will see you very soon.